Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, hosted by Pastor Eric Lawson, where each episode is uniquely designed to help you live all out by bringing you practical leadership from a biblical perspective delivered in 10 minutes or less. So whether you're a business leader, serving in ministry, or simply looking to grow in your leadership, this podcast is for you. Before we dive into this week's topic, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and download the show notes at ericlawson.com/podcast. And while you're at it, feel free to share the content on social media. Now, let's join Pastor Eric for this week's conversation.
Welcome to another edition of the All Out Leadership Podcast. I'm going to pick up on last week's lesson where we talked about storms. We talked about the process of forming, and then there's storming, then there's norming, and then ultimately we reach performing. And I just want to give a couple insights on kind of surviving the storms that come your way inside of wherever you're planted inside of your life. Marriages have these storms. Parenting have these storms. Every job you're going to be on has these storms. Every church you plant inside, you're going to encounter some of these storms. But the Bible gives us some insight as to how to survive. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 26. He has promised, saying, "Yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also heaven." Now this, yet once more, indicates the removal of those things that are being shaken, as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us have grace by which we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. Here's what happens when every storm comes through. Florida experiences this all the time. Every other week during this hurricane season, when a hurricane comes through, it strips away all the things that don't really matter. You know, all those little cheesy flamingo yard staked signs and stuff that didn't matter. The storm just strips it away. It's actually found that it's really good for the ecosystem because, again, it's just removing things that don't matter. And when a storm comes through my life, what I really find out is what truly matters and what doesn't matter. And I often find that I'm giving a lot of time and energy to the things that didn't matter. All of a sudden, that storm comes through. It causes me to focus in on my marriage or my kids or where I need to be focused with Jesus. And it just brings me back to those things that truly matters. When a storm does come, one of the things you don't want to do is run around in the storm. You don't want to go running out. Whee! That's just bad advice. So Psalm 91 verse 2 says, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust." So when a storm comes, don't get mad and run from God. Don't run from your church. Don't run from where God has planted you, because as long as you are staying in the house, in the team where God has planted you, there is a safety because you're in the refuge and fortress of God. Hunker down, let the storm blow over. After that, you can come out and then you can assess and then you can make decisions. There are times certain storms come through and you go, man, we survived that. And then God might say, okay, I'm moving you to another season, moving you to another location, or man, I'm moving you up into a new level of ministry. Great. And then there's times that you look around and you go, okay, awesome. We're better. We got some things stripped away. We got clarity. And then you just keep plugging along where God has planted you. So just remember, don't run around. Don't run out because there's a storm. Hunker down. Let that storm pass by. Never make a major life decision in the middle of a crisis. Never make a life decision in the middle of a storm. Don't make big financial decisions. Don't make big relational decisions. Don't make transitional decisions in the middle of a storm. Let the storm go through. Then you get clarity. Then you assess. Then you're going to make a great decision. See you next week.
Thank you for joining us on the All Out Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained new biblical insight that challenged you to grow in your leadership. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would love your help in getting the content out farther. You can help by subscribing to the podcast at ericlawson.com/podcast and telling others about it. Next week, Pastor Eric will be back with another episode. So until then, we hope you have a great week being an all-out leader.